Hi, so we're back. Um, and I hope you guys who saw part one are going to be coming over for part two. I see some people are starting to join us. Great. A lot of people coming back. Awesome. I'm just waiting for Nick. So Nick's here. I'm gonna get Nick to join. Okay, here we go. Nick is joining us. Here we go. Hi, Nick.
What's up? How are you?
I'm good. So Nick is in Park Slope, right? You're in Brooklyn. You just put a
Yeah,
nice
yeah.
little
This is my
Nick's in
my green
Tulum.
screen in the back, you know.
Great green screen. I need that green screen. Yeah. How's Tulum?
Very nice. I got out a couple of weeks ago before all the madness. Yeah, it's been. I don't know if is this coming in clear? Are you guys all right? Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We can. Everyone
Okay.
here? Can everyone hear Nicodemus? Sounds
I'm
good.
getting like a. What's up, Jonesy? Oh, Chris Annabelle. What's up, fam? So much fam. It was so nice to listen to the interview with you and Smash and Jazzy. We keep in touch a lot, actually, and every time I talk to them, they're dropping so many beautiful gems that I never knew and great stories of New York. I kept thinking, man, this could be a documentary. This is so good, you know?
Well, I mean, it would be great if we do one. I mean, I think the start with the Giant Step Vault, and what is in there from the flyers, the photographs, and the DJ sets as well. I mean, it's a time. It's a very interesting and special time in New York. And again, I never like to say. I'm not a back in the day guy because I always think the best times are that times we're having now, but they were special times, yeah. So Nick, you were born in is it Bayshore? You're a Bayshore boy. Where were you
Uh,
brought up?
I was born in the Bronx, and I grew up in Flushing, Queens, and then went to like junior high and high school out in Long Island, and yeah, a lot of similar stories. Um, we had like a lot of different friends doing different things, like music wise. One was a house DJ, one was reggae, one was hip hop, and we had like great guitarists or a great percussionist. And we started doing parties like back in the mid '90s, fusing like all this type of music and hip hop breaks and house and everything, and then getting the live bands to like jam in or take it over. So I guess like where when I heard about Giant Step, I kind of freaked out. I said, "No way, this really exists. This is amazing." Um, I think because I was record shopping in the city all the time, like all the spots,
Where were you
Downtown
going?
Records, Rock and Soul. There's just so many I was going to, and then I would see these flyers and these Giant Step flyers, and I said, "What is this? This is like, it looked like a dream to me." Some of my favorite musicians, on the covers, and you could just feel the vibe from it. That it was another thing. It was a jazz funk extravaganza, and then when I saw like live musicians and DJs, come on, no way, this can't be true. But I was too young to go.
But how old were you when you started DJing?
um, I guess like around 12 or 13. And my older sister used to work in the city at the Red Zone and the Ritz, and she used to bring me to those places when I was like 12, 13, 14. So I got to see a lot of crazy nightlife, some of Puff Daddy's original parties,
The big house,
pre
Daddy's house, a
like
big house.
dancehall
No,
reggae,
no, it's Red
like
Zone.
festivals.
Hold on. There you go. You're back. Uh,
Exactly. And then so
P
like one
Diddy's,
night would be his
Puff
party, and
Daddy's
then the next
parties
night
at
David
Red Zone,
Morales.
right? Right.
What's that?
I said Puff Daddy's parties at the Red Zone, Daddy's house.
Exactly.
On
And
I think it was a Wednesday night.
I can't recall, but I was definitely there on the weekends because I was, I was able to go on the weekends, having school during the week. And I remember I was in love with Delight, Miss Lady Kier, and it was like a night where Kyoki was playing, she was performing, and they asked me to paint the place, to do all these mushrooms and blacklight stuff with flowers and all this. And so that was like, I got to be there, and I had all these records already, and this was like a big influence on me. It was really, that was my first kind of like, experience in the clubs at the time.
So
Yeah.
I think Mark LaBelle was the person who introduced you to us, if I remember correctly, because he was like, "There's this kid Nickodemus. He's really good. We should get him to play at the club." Is that? I mean, do you remember how we started working together?
Yeah, I remember, again, just being like, wow, I wish I could go to one of these clubs. Getting the Diggable Planets record and, the Giant Step mix. And it was all coming together like, this is where I need to be. So I waited. I saw that there was an outdoor event at Washington Square Park with the Groove Collective. And I went and I brought my mixtape. And I was so scared. Like, who do I give this to? Who do I approach? And I just saw these like two cool cats. Like, these guys, they got to be the ones. It was Mark LaBelle and Baby Power. And I walked up to Mark and I gave him the tape. And whatever, he was like, I had the phone numbers on your mixtape always, or like, I think it was my mom's house phone. And so I went. Sorry for the shaking. And I'm like, okay. So I went there with the mixtape, and thanks Smash. Word up, big up Smash. What up, Genji? So Mark LaBelle hit me back up, or Jonathan called me actually. Jonathan called me and said, "Hey, would you like to come down and do a night at the club?" And I said, "What? Are you kidding me? Like, it's like a dream, It's like unbelievable." So I went.
Do you
I
remember
think you
where the
guys
club
booked.
was back then? Do you remember where it was?
Yeah, it was at the bank on Houston and
On East
First.
Houston, yeah.
Yeah. And me and my friend Chris Annabelle, DJ Osiris, were already starting to like jam a little bit. And, we were going to parties. We were going to so many parties at that time together and had similar tastes in music. We rallied in together. We said, let's go. And he came, and I can't remember, maybe if he's online, if he played a little bit of congas that night. I don't know how Nappy let him on, but something happened there. Like, and actually, it was
I
really
think Nappy was
intimidating.
trying to chat up a girl probably, and he left his.
Yeah, exactly.
So how old were you? How old were you
I think I was
when you
like
first?
18 or 19. I was going to
Wow.
Hunter College, I think, at that time. And I started, my first gigs in the city were at, this is the craziest thing about when I talk to Jazzy, was that we have so many similar stories and influence that one of my first gigs was at the, what's it called? It was on Ludlow Orchard, Sapphire Lounge. Okay,
Sapphire Lounge, yeah. Sapphire Lounge, yeah. I used to play there on a Monday.
Yeah, exactly. And Jazzy used to play there too, I guess. And we talked about this. And one day I was with one of my other really good friends that I grew up with DJing with, was Tito Rock. Tito Rock grew up uptown on 107th Street in Harlem. And one night I had put together this like lineup of Jazzy Nice, me, Tito Rock, right? And Jazzy walks in and goes, "Tito Rock." Jazzy and Tito Rock goes, "What? Jazzy Nice." Now, they apparently Tito grew up like watching him play, like in someone's apartment or something, some crazy story like this. And you know, me and Tito would like Tito was a huge influence on how I DJ'd, and Tito would bring in like, you know, Red Fox jokes, acapellas over beats. He played house, uh, freestyle, salsa, you know, hip hop, reggae, and right there it made so much sense to me how we were all so connected through Jazzy, you know. And when I got to finally go to a Giant Step party after you guys invited me and stuff to see Jazzy rock, I was like, oh my God, we had so many similar tastes in records and how we cut and how we drop acapellas. And it comes from like this whole, like, you know, each one teach one style that we had, you know.
I mean, were you not nervous? Because I mean, like, you know, Jazzy and Smash were sort of like very sort of like, I'm sure they did get nervous as well, but they were like veteran like New York legendary DJs and Chill Freeze, and you were like this 18-year-old kid who were kind of like,
I
given
tell you
the,
the truth,
keys to the
you
car.
know, like I can remember my hand shaking so much that I couldn't even get the needle on the record. It was
Wow.
like I had to just like it, flick the needle onto the record somewhere, and wherever it landed, I had to rewind and find the one. Like, I was so scared, man, so scared. And then, you know, it was a little intimidating because, you know, the DJs were so damn good. Chill Freeze was unbelievable DJ, you know,
Yeah.
and you can't stop the train. Like, you know, Nappy and Genji, like steady humming in the rhythm, like you really couldn't stop. There was no choice but to do it. And then, it happened many times. And I remember another time I was so damn scared. I never played to a crowd that big. I think it was before Saint Germain at Roseland,
Yeah.
where I don't know, them and also with the Massive Attack. You guys had lined me up with Massive Attack to play. Do you remember where that was?
It was probably at Roselands, if it was, or
Roseland.
Supper Club, or no, that was the Hammerstein Ballroom. I think that was the Hammerstein Ballroom with Massive Attack, which was like 5,000 people there.
You know?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that you
it's
also
one of those
started...
things when you're looking at a crowd.
No, go ahead. So, one of the things that you started doing quite early on was also making music. And, that's something that you have continued to do.
Sorry. I'm in between, like...
Nick is in Tulum, guys, so that's why he's... You're good. We can hear you.
In order to get closer...
In
order to get closer to the Wi-Fi, I have to go closer to this sound system. So let me know if you can hear me, okay?
Closer to the noise, right. Yeah, we can hear you good. We're not really hearing too much noise. So I was just saying that, you started making music quite early on. And, Nickodemus and Osiris, we put out some stuff on Giant Step, which was awesome. But then you also started, after Giant Step, it was Organic Grooves that you were doing. And so, and then obviously the legendary turntable parties. And, I always felt very proudly that turntables was like the baby that Giant Step had and went on and did, right? Yeah.
Definitely.
So talk a little bit about, like the Organic Grooves and then starting to make music and the turntable era.
Sure. Well, like, I guess, throwing parties was something in my blood from the beginning, like when, they say it's like, necessity is the mother of all invention. And in Long Island at the time, growing up, there was really nothing to do, there wasn't much. There was only one club called Caffeine. And other than that, there was nowhere to get together. And then, when you work with a club, they kind of dictate to you a little bit of what to play and stuff like that. So we just started just doing our own thing. And I was always into this, just having a huge eclectic mix. Like I wasn't ever into just one type of music through the whole night. And I think that was something similar that Giant Step, had in common that I thought was a nice, perfect mix. And we, obviously met Nappy and so many great people through those parties, and we just wanted to play more. So we started Turntables on the Hudson, and Organic Grooves was going on at that same time, which was similar, doing live music, more world, African dub, Indian music. Like they were really, really far out there. Some nights I remember we wouldn't even crack over 95 beats per minute, the whole night.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very smoky and, dark. And it was like, I mean, between Giant Step and Organic Grooves and Turntables in the Hudson, I had like the ability to really expand my music knowledge way beyond anything I ever imagined. Growing up, it was like hip hop, reggae, and then my dad's like Latin and soul and funk records, which he passed down to me, But to have a party where you can go and like Smash was saying, like Giles Peterson dropping Miles Davis, So What, in the middle of a party. That just surprised me now. It's so dope. And I think a lot of New York City at that time was focused on one type of music, besides, of course, the loft. But like you would go out to like a club and hear like, okay, there's a hip hop reggae DJ. Okay, there's a house DJ or a house party. And I kind of feel like, Turntables was just doing what we loved, and you guys actually taught me that it's okay to do that. Like you can do that and people will love it. And you guys encouraged it. I remember Jonathan, so many times he put me on some great nights, like with Gil Scott-Heron. And I would open up for Gil Scott-Heron every Martin Luther King birthday. And I had to go and do my homework. I went out there and dug in the crates. I was like, this is no joke. This is special. I gotta get in there. And I just remember him always encouraging. He's like, no, you don't have to just do rare groove or this or that. He's like, play everything, man. Play the jazz, play hip hop. I was like, really? I can play hip hop? Okay. And because also I think a lot of people need to remember that hip hop was a no-go in the clubs in New York City. It was like a lot of clubs would say, "Oh, no hip hop."
No
hip
hip
hop. Like,
yeah.
Sapphire Lounge was one of those. They asked me not to play hip hop sometimes, and I'm like, okay, all right, trying to keep my job and all that. But they equated it to like violence, and, fighting and stuff like that. Yeah.
So
It's so crazy.
Just a very quick comment. Mac just said that's dangerous opening up for Gil Scott-Heron, and my comment to that is you needed to bring a lot of records because you didn't know at what time you'd actually start playing at. So you'd bring a big break.
Absolutely. I totally ran out of records plenty of times and just played the ones I played in the beginning again. But it was an honor, and it just shaped like how I understood music and artists and how promoters worked, like seeing how you guys work behind the scenes with Larry Gold and then the bank and stuff. Like, I don't know, all this stuff was just I was so young and absorbing it all like a sponge. And I just have to say, like, every time I got that call, man, and you guys were like, hey, can you come in, do you want to do a night? I swear I prepared records for like I maybe never left my bedroom, I just prepared mixes and throwing acapellas over beats and just trying different things, Muda Baruka, disc poem over like a house groove, all these things. When you give someone an opportunity like that, man. It's like you really it just took over everything. I don't even remember going to college anymore. I just like,
And you've continued. I mean, you have a very successful record label. You take turntables on the Hudson all around the world. You do turntables on the Nile, turntables on pretty much
yeah.
every river you could imagine. Talk about some of those experiences you've had taking turntables around the world.
Sure. Well, I think we just kept finding similar people and similar grooves everywhere we went. Um, and I love to travel with the whole gang. That was more my favorite. I didn't like to travel alone. I I like Nappy and Mariano and Zeb and the whole crew were there. Like we had so much damn fun together. Like Jazzy was saying earlier in Smash that's why that groove was so tight and the party was so successful is because that unit, the musical unit, was so tight and so much fun. They loved each other, like they had a groove. And so we would just try to get as many gigs we can outside, together and finding those commonalities in different cities. It actually turned out to be pretty easy because like there was a DJ, having mixes out and records out. People were able to, contact us easily, so we knew where our crew was. It wasn't like fishing in the dark. And also, I guess like I could just walk down the street, and if I hear a good sax player or a good percussionist, I would just invite them to the party and say, "Hey, come and jam with me." And that's something I've always done. And I think like the more that happened, the more the crew built. Like in Cairo, we started doing that about 12 years ago, and the crew just grew. It grew. It grew. Another percussionist joined, and more DJs were inspired. They said, "Oh wow, this is really happening. Like I can play this music. I can play Afro rock from Ghana in the 70s and matched with like, house music matched with, dub and Nightmares on Wax." And like I guess the same way that Giant Step and the Groove Collective inspired me, like we started doing that in different cities all around the world. Barcelona was a great run. You just find like similar people who are into different things, similar open-minded playlists and jamming with musicians, and you go for it, And so we did a couple other ones like the Danube, the Thames in London, but the most consistent ones were in Barcelona, Las Ramblas, Cairo, the Nile. Which, man, when this COVID shit is over, that's like one of the first places we're gonna go back and do the party there again. That was honestly one of my favorite experiences. And some places you would never imagine, like Jamena, Chad, or Havana, Cuba. It's been great. It's been, the collective has grown, the family is worldwide, and it's just about, sometimes taking a few risks and going for it.
And while we have a few minutes left, Wonder Wheel. I mean, you're not just putting out your music. You've got other artists who are on the label. Soda Major. Talk a little bit about what you have coming out on Wonder Wheel. In the next few months, as we can't see you perform live. You've got records.
Sure. Well, yeah, Wonder Wheel, I guess I started right after the Giant Step. So for anyone who's listening out there, we started our first productions, myself and Chris Annabelle, with Giant Step Records. And we put out like 3 singles or 4 singles and a whole host of remixes. So you really, you guys gave us our start on that too. To have an avenue to put out your music was like so special in those days, and I learned how to do it as well. So we started our label Wonder Wheel Recordings soon after, with Jeannie Hopper helping out. Big up to Jeannie Hopper. And it's still going today. We have artists from everywhere, all over the world. I really pride on finding new artists and breaking new artists, traveling to different places and finding new artists. We have someone from just about every corner of the globe on the label, and that's wonderwheelrecordings.com if anyone wants to check it out. It's everything. I still have my heart and soul in the roots of hip-hop, house, reggae, dub, and funk. So that's always going to be there, but we've gone so far into, like, the Andes, into Jamaica, Chad, and produced the record there, to, like, you name it, we're everywhere. Cairo, Cuba. I love developing artists, and I love the whole process of connecting and helping each other out, and and now in these crazy times, it's a great passive income for us and a lot of artists, to have music out there and publish. There's so many ways to make money on music, streaming and licensing. So, I have to say it's been really great. The whole thing has been, I have to say, a blessing. Music has saved my life and many people I know. And I really appreciate you, Jonathan, and the whole Groove Collective, every single dope musician who taught me so much about spinning and groove and taking breaks and coming in and out of grooves. I mean, all that stuff was the foundation of everything I'm still doing today and why I'm here in, like, another country enjoying life, you know what I mean? And I really appreciate that. I want to say thank you to all you guys, man. Everybody on the chat. Big up Chris Annabelle, my brother. He taught me how to use a damn MPC. Eric the Red, everybody. All right.
Excellent. Well, Nick, we're going to let you go. If there's one more thing you want to say beforehand, before I bring on Mr. Ron Trent.
Oh yeah, big up Ron Trent, man. That's another DJ I love to watch, and comes from that old school of just like that long mixes and dope groove and African vibes. I just want to say, once again, thank you, everybody. I'm happy to see a lot of people here in the chat. That means we're alive, we're doing well, knock on wood. Count your blessings that we're all here. And we will see you in 2021. Happy New Year, everybody. And stay positive. Someone taught me a new term called radical. What is it? Oh God, there's like, sometimes I get caught in radical pessimism. It's radical optimism, and it can start by just saying hello to people on the street through your mask. Say hello, say good morning, say good evening, say good afternoon. I think if we take it to the old school like that, and we're gonna keep a real positive start to 2021. All right, so good evening to all of you. And thanks for listening. Bless up, Barry.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
Barry.
you,
So
Nick.
many OGs in the chat. Thank
Thank
you,
you, Nick.
Maurice. You're great at this, by
Enjoy
the way.
Tulum. Be
You're really,
careful. Be careful there. You know what happened to me, so just be careful. So,
I will.
right. But it's beautiful. Nick, thank you.
I know.
I'm going to get
I know.
Ron to
Thank you,
join us
brother.
now. Happy New Year, Nick. So I'm going to get Ron Trent to come on. Just give me 1 second, guys. Got a long list of people to look through. Here we go. Here's Ron. So requesting Ron Trent. So Ron is the last. And here we go. And he's wearing the T-shirt as well. Wow. It's
gotta represent. Yes, sir.
Good to see you, Ron.
Hey, man, I'm hanging in there. I got, excuse the bags under my eyes, man. I've been working quite a bit, like in the studio, man.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Well, we want to hear all about that. So before we get into the chat, sort of we've been, today we've done this sort of like, mini marathon of the sort of the canon of the sort of the main DJs who really shaped the sound of Giant Step. We started with Smash, who was the first DJ. Jazzy was the second. We did not have Chill Freeze, unfortunately, but we need to also recognize the contribution that Chill Freeze made, not only to the music, but also to the scene in those days. Repercussions. Chill Freeze actually introduced me to a lot of the musicians who then became part of the team. So Chill Freeze, then we just had Nick, and now we have Ron. And again, other people did DJ at Giant Step. I don't want to take away from, but these guys were the resident DJs who we did week in, week out. And Ron started DJing at Giant Step in the year 2000, if I'm correct, right?
Well, we did like a little pre-party in '99. And then we started officially in 2000.
Right. We have started officially with the weekly. And just to give people some sort of perspective as well, Giant Step had been a Thursday night. We started in the very first days as a Monday, and then we became big boys and we got a Thursday night. And we rocked this Thursday night for about, I'd say about 9 years, or almost 10 years. And then we really wanted to change things up because acid jazz, which I never liked that term, but that's what we were known as, had really...
that's how I knew Giant Step, actually.
Right. It was just... We needed to move away. And just as we'd been sort of like radically changed when we first started, we needed to make a radical shift. And, you know, and I think Gamal introduced me to you. Gamal or what?
Gamal, I don't know, man. We were in the same gene pool somehow. You know what I mean? Same orbit. And we just kind of connected more or less, you know?
Right. But I think, you know, before Giant Step, I mean, you were already this thing is, you were already a legend before you started DJing for us. And Ron, if we think Nickodemus was young when he started, I think Ron put out his first record when he was about 7, right? Now, how old are you? You put out Alter States when you were like 14 or 15?
I created it when I was 14 and I put it out when I was 18. So I published my first record in 1990, you know, and I was the baby boy, if you will, in the scene here in Chicago when I was coming up. So, you know, I always kind of grew up in a situation where coming up in this scene where I was like really the low man of tonal talk.
This is Chicago, just so everyone knows. This is you grew up in Chicago.
I grew up in Chicago. I was born on the East Coast. I was born in Massachusetts. And my parents came to Chicago because this is where my father's from. So I come from a heavy, like, Pan-Africanist jazz background. Just real quickly, man, my parents actually were a part of a culture that was being created at UMass, University of Massachusetts. And they had created this thing called Africa House back in that time. And so as a part of educating the students, the African-American students up there at that time, they had adjunct professors that like would blow your mind. One of them being Max Roach, Kwame Ture. I can't think of the lady's name right now, but she later became a big educator at Spelman College. I can't think of her name. But anyway, it was a lot of black intelligentsia, black jazz, and this kind of thing. And my father was a musician.
What did he play?
Like, you know, an educated lawyer, but he played percussion, and actually he played percussion with Max Roach.
Wow.
That kind of thing. I just kind of grew up in a real heavy black jazz records, you know, black conscious, spiritual jazz kind of environment, you know. So when I got the opportunity to actually kind of engrave, you know, mix with Giant Step and the philosophy, that kind of thing, it just made sense. It was already there. You know, along with world music and, you know, dance and that kind of thing, which obviously I had, you know, had a lineage in, you know.
But growing up in Chicago, you were 14 when you did Alter States. I mean, and Chicago is the home of house music. Yeah. were you in that? I mean, I know you were young, but were you in
Yeah.
that sort of like sphere at all? Were you touching some of those guys? What
Well,
was your
you know, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, because I wound up becoming friends with Ron Hardy later, and definitely became great friends with Frankie Knuckles. These guys are my brothers, and you know, actually I had to get a chance to really hang out with Ron Hardy, which is like one. If you guys are not familiar, Ron Hardy was like outside of Frankie Knuckles, really one of the godfathers
Yep.
in Chicago of house music.
Mm-hmm.
But hung out with him, you know, a month and week, like closely, right before he passed away. It was, for me at that time, I mean, like hanging out with him, because Alter States had just kind of come out too. And he was playing at a place here called AKA. Just a quick story. And I met him, and I had seen him, you know, throughout whatever, but never really touched him and talked to him and kicked it. And so he was like, Ron, that's a great record, man. I'm playing that record at AKA, you know. And, you know, for me, it was like, you know, it was a moment, right? So, on a professional level, I met a lot of these guys that I looked up to. And I was one of the guys who was actually helping to pioneer this thing in my generation, you know, in the 80s. I was playing in the 80s. I was doing teenage parties and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I was that guy doing that stuff, you know. So I kind of came up kind of hard too. You know, I had to open up, you know, and be the totem pole guy.
So what were some of the records you were playing when you were a teenager? When you were?
Oh man, we'll put it this way. At that time, because you know there was a place here called Imports, etc., which sold import records. That was the main piece, right? That was the soundtrack of what really house music is. So I played a lot of what we call Italo disco, a lot of classics, you know, and you know, not a, you know, and I guess what we would consider jazz funk records now, you know what I mean? So a combination of that, and then tracks that were on the underground circuit, stuff that people were making, that was their rendition of what house music was. Rather, yeah, what Frankie Knuckles was playing, or some of these classics that we had collected that you couldn't afford to get, maybe. So guys would go in the studio and, you know, get a drum machine and try to like, you know, and because a lot of the stuff that Frankie and Ronnie were playing was like really obscure shit, bro. It was like totally different era, totally different level of thinking, you know. It was, that's why, and I want to say this is where the term deep house comes from.
Mm-hmm.
People think it's all deep house. It means, you know, deep jazzy vocals and mood. No, deep house is a term we coined here to kind of describe the stuff that Frankie and Ronnie was playing, because it was very obscure, which made it deep. Jazz stuff that was just kind of like deep, you know. And so we said, yeah, deep house, you know, and then of course things took on a life of their own and whatever, you know. Even like Altered States, my first record was like really more of an electronic alternative record to a certain degree. You know, we were really into like, you know, alternative sounds, Europop, Italo disco, you know, really eclectic kind of stuff. And being a black urban kid in Chicago, you know, it wasn't a whole bunch of us. Don't get it twisted. It wasn't like everybody was walking around house music. It wasn't like that. If you chose this music, you really were choosing something that was like, you know, you would be ridiculed maybe. You might have to defend yourself when you walked out the house because you had a certain fashion on and people might want to try to rob you. You know, so it was a whole adventure to this thing. And you really had to love this music, you know, and that in those times. So, and you went to these parties to kind of connect with the people that were of like minds, you know, and then that regenerated you to the next time, you know, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, some of the records, man, I mean, that's, Lord have mercy. I remember one of the first records that I really loved, okay, back in that time was Capricorn, I Need Love. That was like a big record for us. Face the Drums, you know, which is a beat track. thing that we used to play all the time. Let me see, a classic, of course. The classic house record at the time is, you know, It's Not Over, you know, the first choice.
I lost you for a second.
You there?
I lost you for a second.
Oh,
Go,
okay.
go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, you're
Okay.
back. You're back.
Yeah, Out of My Hands by Omni, which was a big Frankie Knuckles record. You know, a lot of the stuff that we played was kind of spillover from what Frankie and Ronnie were playing at that time. You know, those were the guys you wanted to be like.
And you pretty soon after that, you started Prescription Records, your own record label, independent record label.
Yeah, I started Prescription with Tay Damier around 92, 93.
From Detroit. So
From
you're
Detroit.
Chicago, he's Detroit. How did you guys?
But he's actually originally from Chicago.
Okay. But he was living in Detroit.
Yeah, so we had a common friend named Carl Bias, who used to be in Master C&J, who produced Liz Torres and, you know, this kind of thing. And Carl and I were good friends, and Shay came over to visit him. Carl hooked us up. You know, Carl, you know, Shay was looking for me, actually, and then we hooked up, and then it was just like, you know, we had a big age difference, but we had the same, coming from the same ethos, right? So when we talked, it was just like automatic. We were like, okay, yeah, let's do something, you know.
And you moved to New York in what, like 99 or?
No, actually, more like 96, 97, you know. And I hadn't planned on moving to New York. I had not planned on moving there at all.
Oh, you didn't plan on moving to New York?
No. No. So I had a business partner, and I'm not going to name his name or whatever, but he was from New York, and we did a business venture together, and it didn't turn out too well. So I kind of went there like, I was kind of like looking for him. And at the same time, I had started a venture here in Chicago where I expended a lot of money on it. I was trying to open a space here, which I did. And, you know, kind of doing it what people call now an event space. Okay? And back then, it was just like, oh, this black guy is opening up a space in the middle of Chicago, and he's in there selling drugs. They gave me a hard time.
Right.
Now it's okay, you know, but it was like I had a 7,500 square foot loft space.
Wow.
I was doing events in it. I was renting it out. And I was trying to facilitate art because that's more or less where my interest was. You know, I was making music, but I wanted to be able to kind of integrate with, you know, people in the community and build community. Where I started this party called African Blues.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that was my first venture in New York that I did. So out of that, you know, I think you came to that party. As a matter of fact,
Yeah.
Myself and Joe Cosell.
Yeah.
East Bookman Experience.
Yeah.
I think at that time, Jeff de Guillaume's album was Joe's. So we were introducing that because I was interested in presenting like world music stuff, cultural events, and etc. So that's why we're getting with Giant stuff. It just made sense. It was like, okay, cool. This is like-minded people.
And one of the, I mean, you know, I spoke earlier about how, you know, the party was, the club was 10 years old when we started working with you, and we really needed a fresh sound. We'd come off the success of the new Eureka Soul album, and we really needed, I wanted to, you know, we'd had success with New Eureka Soul, but that had gone through another label. We were an imprint deal.
Sure. And
then we started doing our marketing, and we started, you know, like blowing up artists like Macy Gray and Jill Scott and Sade. Right. And it was like, we're going to put out independent records, you know, but we, you know, I always thought, you know, about every great independent label has like a in-house producer. And, you know, when Gamal introduced me to you properly, and it was like, that's what he does. And he also DJs. So, you know, Giant Step was always a playground. We were able to create really the club became like the playground for the label for Giant Step Records. And your sound was a much sort of deeper house sound, a lot more sort of percussive. And then he was like, you know, Ron, like, you know, go in the studio with Tamango and produce a record. and Ron, Carl Hancock Rocks, do a record. And you go in for the night with these guys and come out and like, it'd be like, we'd have like an amazing classic 12-inch, you know, Donny, the first Donny record.
Boom.
Was this.
Donny and RT.
Yeah. So I mean, it was like,
first of all, the groovies, my lifeline. Jonesy, my lifeline. Okay, gotta mention my man Jonesy. Jonesy was my man. He helped because he had all the experience of dealing with the guys before, and you know had the history. He's a record nerd like me, and he was an older brother, so he was like able to, you know, kind of help tie me in, because my thing was to try to create a new sound for Giant Step, right? Which is a combination of jazz funk, dance floor sensibility, you know, but just all around good music, musicianship. You know, also I want to say like my man Ben Grissini, which was my engineer, it was my right-hand man. You know, we were crafting something new. That was the idea. So, you know, studio production skill, mindset, I'm like, okay, I got to go in and get this done. You know, we got a short amount of time. This is money. Because back in that time, you know, people didn't have a whole bunch of phones.
No, it was like, we got enough to pay for the studio and pay you something, and the musician something, and let's hope we get something. It was like,
man, you got to go in and like, look, you know, we got to get this going, because we got, you know, it's not a whole bunch of hanging out and smoking weed.
There was not a lot of hanging out, no.
You get it done.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was just an excellent forum to be able to like not only express myself, but to be experimental in the way that I wanted to be experimental. And you know, I'm a musician myself. I played percussion. I grew up playing percussion with my pops. Later picked it back up. Like, my pops died in '82, and you know, he was a record collector. He ran a record pool. He was a percussionist, and that was something we did together. When he passed, it kind of broke my heart. You know what I mean? So in the process of actually becoming more of a musician and getting into my art, it's been a way of actually healing that relationship too, you know? So I've always taken it very seriously, you know? And I was looking at pictures of myself when I was young, because I was like 27, 28 back then.
I didn't realize you were that young.
Yeah, I was looking at myself like, you were really mean. You're not mean, dude. You just look like you were very serious all the time. You know, I was taking myself very seriously.
I mean, we had a lot of responsibility. And also, you know, you had to win over, you know, back then the old Giant Step heads, which you managed to do. But then also you had to win over the house heads, because we had, you know, we pulled over a lot of the people who were going to the Shelter and Body and Soul, but we were not playing that type of music.
No,
you know what I mean?
It was really forging for it, man.
Yeah,
you know, and it was probably one of the more innovative dance floors in New York City at the time. You know, and that's why I was taking it seriously, man. And I want to say this as respect to my other brothers that came before me. I didn't want to drop the ball. You know what I mean? I did not want to drop the ball. So I was like laser sharp focused on trying to like, okay, we're going to take this to the next level and keep this legacy here too. So for me, it was like, you know, we got to get this done. And we would have meetings. You know this. Weekly or bi-weekly meetings.
We'd have weekly meetings. Yeah, we'd have weekly meetings. Yeah. How are we going to do it? How are we going to
bring that in? Back the truck up. Back the truck up. You know, we were really, you know, so we were really like trying to plan out how to really just bring this thing all together, because you had already defined yourself to a certain degree, right? Like people knew Giant Step and what it meant. But going into the future, now you got to infuse all these different things. But then people want to hold you and pigeonhole you into what they think they know about you. Right?
Correct.
So it's like, okay, wait a minute, hold on, let's redefine this thing now.
Yeah, you got to ruffle feathers in order to move forward. I mean, you know, we're a 30-year-old company. We can't be seen as sort of like, you know, 1992. You know, we're you know, we're going into 2021, and we've changed and we've grown as a company. We're not a club anymore. We're a marketing agency.
Yes.
But still, the same philosophy and mindset stays the same as it did when we first started working with Smash on a Monday night at SOBs, Jazzy, with Nick, and with you. I mean, it's the same philosophy that it's got to be about innovation, excellence, and trying to really change the game, you know.
Well, you guys are a credit to that, man, and I was inspired as I was in the process of doing it. I was also a student, too, of what you guys were doing. And also trying to, you know, have the outer body experience of watching myself engage with these things, you know, and then also elevating myself as a businessman, as an artist, as somebody that, you know, is coming into this market of New York City where things had already been happening. And then also having this respect and camaraderie with the other people that were doing stuff. Timmy Register is my friend, you know, Joe Cosell, Dan Privet, Francois K. You know, these guys had the big residencies at that time, you know, and before I even had a residency there, I was on the dance floor, man. I was a baby powder kid. You know, that's how people know me. I'm a dancer, you know, so I was going, you know, ground floor. You know, I wanted to have the relationship from the dance floor to the DJ booth, man. And that was what I was doing. So I was at work. You know, I was at work, man. And, you know, I did the best that I could and knew how to do at the time as a young man, you know.
So we're running a little bit out of time. So I want to hear, like, what were some of your favorite records to play down at the club during that era?
Ooh, my God. Well, of course, people can check out that playlist stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you, I think the record that set it off is the record that, for me, that kind of helped to also breathe life into the party. Starting with Rise.
Yeah.
Which was the damn deal with Richard Works. That tune is, to me, like, represents, it was like the beginning of the energy of the soundtrack of the new sound of Giant Step.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Jonathan Marin, you know, from the Groovies, which was my homeboy, we would spend time outside of the club or whatever, man. We'd write stuff together, do stuff together. My Gemini brother, you know, we put that piece together starting at his house. And then by the time we got in the studio, man, we got Richard, and Richard is bad. You know, what, you need another one, Ron. You know, I mean, you know, he's just bad. And we went in the studio and hit it. That record, the record that everybody knows today, but came out of my record box first, which is Change for Me.
Yeah, yeah, Arrow, yeah.
That's right. Ocean Lade gave me the CD to check out. I didn't look at it for a couple of weeks, and then I was at home. I had time. And I listened. I was like, "This is a fucking jam."
Still is.
Like this, and I started playing it, and it became a phenomenon now. Everybody knows the record, you know, which is great. But that was the beauty of this: is to be able to break records and maybe start your careers, or because that's really what your job is as a DJ. Or especially the DJ, is to, you know, introduce music to people, start a career, get people turned on to something. You know, the sound system, as they say in reggae culture, is the information board. You know what I mean? So that's what my job is. It's like to present this great music. And we were making it, we were manufacturing it, marketing it, and living in it. Beautiful situation. Beautiful situation.
For me, you know, there's many records that remind me of you. Obviously, you know, Lamentations, Carl Hancock, which was an absolute classic. But one that we didn't do, because I don't want to just talk about Giant Step records, but Blaze.
Oh yeah.
Elevation. Yeah, I mean, that when you used to play that, you know, like it just was just. I think it was like the 12-minute version. I think, you know, was just like, you know.
But I went, you know, I love that record, and Timmy played it for me first.
Sorry, there's a Go ahead, sorry. Yeah.
Timmy played the record for me first. You know what I mean? I danced to that record and I felt it all through me, right? So by the time I played it for people, you know, I was playing my heart, you know, that kind of thing. And oh yeah, Elevations, Lamentations is a classic now. Oh my God, major. And I knew that record was special anyway, man. When I went home after we recorded, I was like, this is some other shit. You know what I mean? It was like, this is some, you know, this is special. You know, felt a little weird actually. I was like, this is, whew, you know.
No, it's spiritual, that record. And you know, just to let people know, we have a fair amount of your mixes in the vaults from the Shine days. We recorded most of those weeks. We have a lot more as well, which we didn't even digitize. Shout out to Genji for helping us with the digitization of that music.
Yeah.
But you know,
Jay
there's
Rodriguez, I got to mention him too because we did the project together.
Go ahead.
Jay Rodriguez, you know, prolific musician. We did the Batidos project together. Yeah, man, like some great musicians, Nappy G. And I had met those guys years before in Chicago when they came to perform at the House of Blues. They opened up for Erykah Badu.
The Groove Collective. Yeah.
And yeah, man, we seemed to have created a kinship from there, man. It was great to just connect and build them, you know.
Yeah, and the other thing that was great was the fact that we used to have a lot of sort of people like trade off and guest with you those nights, and we had everyone from Louis, Francois, Austin Lade.
Yep.
In fact, that was when Austin Lade was really getting his start as a house producer because he was doing R&B production back then. You know,
and he had come up with one record, Close to You, if I'm not mistaken, Maurice something, but they were playing a lot at Body of Soul. And he and I had a relationship outside of the club, and I wanted to invite him, you know, to play, you know, and once again, having, you know, part of what we do is having an eye for talent or seeing something in somebody.
Yeah.
And, you know, wanting to give them the, you know, the high five and say, hey man, come on, let's get it. Victor Duplay was also somebody that came, played for us, MKL, Kamala.
Yeah.
You know, and then a lot of my brothers from overseas, Phil Asher, Patrick Ford, Bad Boy.
Yeah.
You know.
So sorry to cut Ron, sorry to cut you off, but we're running out of time and it's gonna cut us off. So Ron, thank you very much. Thank you everyone who's joined us for this. It's been a great 2 hours. Much respect to all the guys who created the sound. Thank you to Jonathan Rudnick as well. And Matt and Jonesy and the whole crew. Too many people to name. Happy New Year, everyone. Let's hope 2021 is positive and everyone stay safe. And we'll be doing lots more stuff in 2021. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Smash. Thank you, Jazzy. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Nick. Peace. Bye-bye.